Hello and welcome to the Andy Hardy Show. Today's episode is the second in the Party Crasher series, and today me and my brother are going to be crashing some of the biggest parties out there as far as fundamentalist cults are concerned. So we're going to be starting right off the bat with a fresh look at the Bible and a perspective that is suitable for our current day and age with the rose-colored glasses off. So welcome, Stuart, to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
For sure, bro. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm excited. We're going to get into some fun stuff. Absolutely thrilled to remove the rose-colored lenses, as you put it. I think, who's that guy? Is Kent Hovind or Ken Ham? One of them had, put your spiritual glasses on. I can't do a Australian accent, but
it's yes, one of those. It's probably Ken Ham.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. At any rate, I'm looking forward to delving into this in a much more 2017 type of way.
I'm just not to interrupt you there, but Ken Ham's Ark attraction has it's about gone bust, and they convinced the community they built it around they're going to have like 1 to 2 million visitors a year. And they barely saw like 640,000 their first year, and like nobody's gone back. Yikes. And it's, of course, it's ridiculously expensive.
And I heard, I need to do more research, but I feel like I saw an article somewhere on the internet, and everything you read on the internet's true. So I feel like, joking, I feel like I feel like I saw something about it doing poorly, or there being an accident or something, and him blaming the devil or the public, or just trying to blame people. And I thought, man, like, you put this whole thing together, right? You got to take some responsibility.
He blamed the atheist for
yes, that's what it was,
getting in the way of God's plan. That's just brilliant. I mean, can we all do that? I'd love to have a good talk with an insurance agent about that.
Yeah. That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. I'm sure that would go off without a hitch.
Let me adjust some audio levels here really quickly.
All right.
Okay, you're on while I do that, so why don't you go ahead and...
So I think today what we're going to be getting into, and I'll let you obviously say more in the way that you want to say, but I believe we'll be getting into the matter of tithe, how ludicrous it all is, giving 10% to an organization. I understand that being in church as long as I have and you have in the past, we're not taught to believe that this money, it's almost like the money is going into this mystical Jesus place, and it's not really going to pay your pastor's paycheck or pay for his new car or pay for his house. Nothing wrong with him having a car and a house, but so many of these guys in the movement we came out of, the IFB movement, have really nice things, while the majority of their flock, as they say, the majority of their congregation, they don't. And if they would take time away from church, I think we spoke of this earlier, a friend of mine put together some numbers, and he stands by them, and he's very good at all the math. I'm not, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood, the average person, so it could be more, could be less, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $8,000 that the average person would make if, instead of going to church, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, they would work during that time. Not that that's what you need to do. Talking with you earlier, I feel like spending time with your family would be a much better alternative to going that many times in a week. However, the numbers that he came up with were about $8,000 a year that you'd make if you spent that time working. So that's not even getting into the matter of the tithe and giving, on top of giving your time and giving your talent, also giving your income. But getting back to that, I think, we're going to talk about that today, and its origins, I believe, and the fact that it doesn't work out. So many things in the cult that we emerged from, and then in many other cults, are quite hilarious, actually. It's not funny what it's doing to families and relationships, but it's funny to think that some person back in God knows, well, he does, right? How long ago wrote this and was quite possibly not mentally sane and they put this whole idea together, and now thousands of years later, well, 10%, that's what the Bible says.
Right.
Anyways.
No. Yeah. No. And I totally agree with that. In fact, I pulled up the Bible here where it says
Yes.
The actual scripture. So we'll go ahead and delve into that because we're talking about bringing it back to its origins. So the origin of tithing, and I discussed this in a previous episode, but it's in Hebrews. And Hebrews, whoever wrote it, I think John wrote it, is talking about an event that was never written down in time, in the time that it occurred. He is now hundreds of years later, he's now recollecting a story he's been told, presumably by someone who's been told the story, by someone who's been told the story, by someone who's been told the story, by someone who had some contact with Abraham.
Right.
So at this point, he's going off of a really bad version of telephone.
Right.
And from this story, that's a couple hundred years old, that we're assuming that the excuse that the fundamentalists make for it is that he had divine unction and that the Holy Spirit made him do this. And as we know today, a lot of people claim the Holy Spirit made them do a lot of unsavory things.
Even in the past 5 years. Yeah.
So it's not really a safe bet to go with when it comes to trying to prove something's relevance or how you use it. Anyway, so if I may, sorry to interrupt. Looking at it through the 2017 lens, what I see is the Holy Spirit's name is also the Holy Ghost. So you're telling me that a ghost had you write this, or that a ghost appeared to you. So you're telling me, and I'm not saying there ain't ghosts. I've got a few friends that have had experiences and that believe in those types of things. And I find that sort of thing intriguing. I've never had an experience with it myself, which would probably cause me to believe more if I'd had that. But again, just looking at it through a 2017 lens, you're telling me that going back to Hebrews, John, who we believe penned it, you're telling me that happened hundreds of years ago, was relayed to you by a ghost, and you wrote it down. And now, because of what you wrote down, I should pay the guy that has a nicer car and a nicer house and a better career than me, I should pay him 10% of my measly check. Just adding all those things together. That's trying to
make sense of that.
Yeah, you're totally on par with that. And a lot of times, even if you can't tell that they drive a nicer house or a car, this reminds me of, you know who he is Randy Toole in Alabama. And when he was outed by another pastor, because he was storing all kinds of expensive things, a boat, a Harley Davidson in his garage, and none of his church members knew he had this shit. And he's just stashing it because he's got to appear to be humble, and you have to coax that out of people. You have to make them feel okay about giving you that money.
Right. And I'm not okay with it, although I respect, the movies like The Godfather and Goodfellas, things like that. I respect that old school gangster mentality in that era, in that time period. Or if you're a criminal, but if you're putting yourself on as a religious spiritual leader and you're using very much thug and gangster like policies,
methods.
It's not quite the right word, but methods to run your business, you can't do that. How do you justify that? How do you use those kind of tactics?
It's criminal. It is criminal. And it's become,
it absolutely is.
We've come to a point where churches have been such an enormous, because they're tax exempt, they require little to no education to become a pastor. It doesn't take, you just have to get ordained. And in some cases, you can get straight up ordained in a couple of weeks.
Yep. Yeah.
So to become a pastor, but to become a pastor, I mean, maybe you're looking at maybe 2 years of Bible college somewhere. And then if you're willing to do it, if you're a dirty person, you're set for life, because all you've got to do is convince these people of a lot of, in many cases, things that are already set into place, and you're fixed. And that's where a lot of people are. And if you have a high energy level, it's funny. I was listening to Warren Buffett the other night talk about 3 things he looks for when he's looking for someone to bring on board. And he says they have to have,
just kidding.
They have to have integrity. They have to have there's another I word, and they have to have energy, intelligence, integrity, intelligence, and energy. So what he says,
Yeah.
he says, without integrity, you don't want someone who's intelligent and energetic because
Yeah.
they'll kill you. He says
Yeah.
you want
Well,
someone
then you have
who's lazy.
then you have the Wolf of Wall Street.
Right. But so what happens is if you do take that, you find a lot of people out there no integrity, but they have intelligence and energy, and that's who you see in the pastorate a lot of times. Someone who's very energetic, very zealous, and they're intelligent. They're very intelligent. They get people on their side, but they've got the integrity of a snake. That's an insult to snakes.
Yeah. Anyways, back to Hebrews.
Yeah. Oh, back to Hebrews. Okay, so I gotta unlock this again. So in Hebrews, we've got the verse here. This is where the Christian organizations, such as in many cases Catholic churches and all of your Baptist people, this is how they've been funded, more or less, for the last few centuries. Yeah. This is the verse that they build the way they make money on. So if you ever see a big church and you wonder how it was built, this is it. And this is really insane. So for Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest to the Most High God. So this guy's already got three personalities, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of kings and blessed him. So you've got an egomaniac who has multiple personality disorder, met a guy who killed a bunch of people. Well, and he obviously didn't say anything bad to him because he just killed a bunch of people. I mean, if he just slaughtered a bunch of people, he's coming back, he's covered in blood. You don't go, oh.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk shit to that guy.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a jerk to him. So he blessed him. Of course he blessed him. And then to whom also Abraham gave a tenth part of all, first being interpretation, king of righteousness. So now they're saying, and this is where the wordiness, and it's a little bit like reading a legal document. If a legal document was written by someone who is dyslexic and 4 years old. Because what happens is we say, so we've got Abraham gave a tenth part of all. That's very open-ended. Did he give him a tenth part of his penis?
Yeah, well,
did he slice off a part of his dick? Oh, there's a tenth part of that.
He did eventually. That's circumcision. He did.
Here's one of my toes. Here's a finger.
Where does it stop?
Anyway,
what you're saying.
Right. So it's incredibly open-ended. There's no way to know how. And
allow me to interject here. Say, again, just more and more ludicrous, but a tenth part of everything goes to, as Mac from Always Sunny in Philadelphia puts it, the ghost man in the sky. So I'm not trying to get in people's feels and get people angry, but the point that I'd like to make is, if it's God, if it's Jesus, if it's a spiritual being, what in the hell is he going to do with these goats and pigs? And look, this is a medieval time. So he took women as handmaidens, meaning he took wives and daughters and single women to have sex with, or to have his men have sex with. But what's God doing with those? Is God having sex with them? What is he doing with them? Where do they go? Oh, he can't take them to heaven, right? I mean, what's God doing with all these things?
Yeah, if it is God, if it's Jesus, then he's just got to either put them in a spaceship and take them to heaven, or they all have to die, or he's just going to abandon them somewhere else in the wilderness.
Yeah, I don't understand what he's going to do with the tenth of everything. Anyways.
Right, it doesn't make any – right, and it's so totally pointless. But we'll get into that in a second. To whom also Abraham gave a tenth part of all, first being by interpretation. So without any break, now we're interpreting – the first interpretation of who Melchizedek is, right?
Right.
And all this guy's done is he's read the Bible and he has heard stories. And so this is where all this is coming from. To whom Abraham gave the tenth part of all, first being by interpretation, king of righteousness, and after that also king of Salem, which is king of peace. And that verse is convoluted.
King of peace is the guy that blessed the guy coming from a massacre.
Yeah. Oh, he loves peace.
Maybe I shouldn't say massacre. A war for sure. A battle. So I don't know how well Abraham was against his enemies, but
yeah, if everybody's dead, you have peace.
It's true.
And it's the tyrannical concept.
Yeah.
Of if you kill everyone who disagrees with you, everybody agrees with you, and there's
exactly. Mm-hmm. which doesn't work. But anyways, I was just trying to point out the irony of, oh, I'm the king of peace, and you just murdered all these people, so I must bless you. The hell? Like, doesn't sound peaceful to me, bro.
Right.
I'm not getting
totally. So if we just look at how convoluted these couple of verses are, and then the third verse goes on, without father, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life. Well, without father or mother, he's an orphan. But if he didn't have a beginning or an end, and I know you didn't have time to watch my first podcast on this, but I went over the idea that perhaps this was a Dalai Lama type figure who reincarnated ever so often. Otherwise, it would have to be an extraterrestrial, which I don't think we can rule out at this point. Although I think if what I'm seeing is Abraham gave a shitload of what he owned to somebody in the desert. And the rest of it sounds like, the rest of it sounds like excuses. Why? Yeah. Hey, Abraham, where'd your 10 good horses go? King of Peace, Salem. He met me in the desert after I slaughtered people. And
well, back up, babe. Hold on.
He had no mother or father without end. He also was never born, but I gave him 10%.
Exactly. So what really, I mean, again, through the 2017, logically, what I'm hearing, and I just, I watch a lot of TV as Ghost Rider does also. So my thought is he's on his way back and he meets a larger force that he's not equipped, and his men are tired. They've been doing battle. He meets a larger force that they're not equipped to handle and has to give up a bunch of shit. And when he gets back, the people, and then he talks to all the homies and says, look, guys, like homies being warriors, like, look, this is what we're going to tell them. So they rehearse this story, they get back, and either the men don't say shit, or they all went over the story that they rehearsed with Abe and say,
I have to interrupt you because no, it's in theory with yours. They didn't get their story together. He just would have killed them if they didn't go along with it.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, exactly. They don't have to. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So they just probably kept their mouths shut because not everyone's going to know. But a few leaders probably said, well, what the hell, man? Like you said, you had this great, battle or whatever. And now the stuff you come back with is pretty much subpar. Why didn't you take the good stuff? Because like they talk about that, not just first fruits, but medieval times and Bible times. They talk about they took the best of everything. They wouldn't leave the good shit behind. They'd bring it with them. So it's quite possible they met a larger force, realized that they were outmatched, especially after having just done battle, and said, "Look, just take the best shit, and we'll be on our way." And this, all right, that works. Exactly what happened, but it makes a lot more sense than the Ghost Man in the sky.
Right. Well, the other thing, I mean, the Ghost Man, that premise is just so ridiculous. It had to be made up. That, or they got high at another village and they gambled it all away. I mean, or they came through a village where there were some really good hookers and they spent it all on hookers.
And they paid,
But to me, it doesn't sound realistic. It just sounds like a bunch of excuses for him losing a bunch of stuff. Because, I mean, if you go off to war, you're supposed to bring home a bunch of stuff, and your wife goes, "Hey, Abraham, where the hell is this shit?" And he's like,
Melchizedek. The hell did you say? Melchizedek, I just made it up. Sounds good, right, babe? Yeah, for sure. So we'll tell everyone. Come on. Yeah, no, I mean, I was married. I know that sometimes you got to come up with shit that just isn't there, and sometimes she buys it, sometimes she doesn't. In this case, apparently she bought it. No, okay, now we're going to get too deep. Where is this in the timeline of Isaac and the sacrifice?
This would be before again, but this is mentioned in Hebrews, which is almost the end of the Bible, which is about 1,000 years after this happened. So who knows? Like, who really knows? All this really is a story that Abraham told Isaac one day when he wasn't supposedly trying to kill him, because he obviously had some kind of power issue. He wanted to kill his children. Then he had to make an excuse about that. No, God told me to try and slit my boy's throat. I wasn't mad at all. Mad?
Mad? Are you kidding me? I cut myself up for the guy. I'm super happy. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Thrilled for all this.
I don't know, but it's just it's just a mess. So
what's the? I haven't. Here's something funny that that I would like to share. Um, I studied Bible for a very long time. I've thrown out most of the shit books that I had, but Wilmington's and is that the big fat one? I think Wilmington's is a little blue one. I had the big fat one. It was green. I had to buy it at Hyles. It was huge. But I did do a lot of Bible studying, and ironically enough, one of my dearest friends who is an atheist, in California, he's read more Bible than I have. So I think I find that funny. I mean, because when I got the Chronicles, I was done. But if I'm just trying to think, and you may have a better grasp on this than me, but if we're talking about crazy Old Testament stories, and I don't mean to veer off too much from this idea of tithe, I'll definitely come back to it because I think it's something that is utterly ridiculous. But okay, what's the story? What's the story with Noah and the wine and all the incest? What is that? Remember? Because I mean, there was only 8 of them, and then the daughters said, we have to have sex with dad in order to repopulate the earth, which technically, yes.
I'm gonna stop you there because let's just look at the Great Flood. Think about the flood of 93, and but the flood of 93, but they didn't have any communication with anyone without maybe 10 miles away from them, right?
Right.
And they didn't have, there were no search and rescue. There was no organized anything at that point in time. And so, if everyone that you know of gets wiped out in a natural disaster, and you happen to have, all we know is this guy had a boat big enough for him to be on. He didn't necessarily have to bring all of humanity and all the animals. By the way, what kind of a weird God is like, yes, save you and 6 people who are then going to have incestual sex for us to repopulate the earth, but make sure you get all the animals for Pete's sake. Like, we wouldn't want dogs having to have incest or anything like that. No, just, we wouldn't want, mosquitoes making love to gnats or something. That'd be just sick.
That would be just gross. It's true, though. You think about it. Like, now look, the animal life needs to survive. They'll probably make it, but it's whatever. You're going to be cross-eyed for a few generations, but it'll peter out. What the fuck, man? Like, that's not cool. If you really know everything, why would you do that shit to us? That's not cool. I don't want to bang her. That's not, no. I'm good.
Well,
really good.
I mean, you're God, right? So you could just he could have prevented it from happening anyway.
Exactly.
I'm just seeing a natural disaster, and you've got someone who really likes to build boats in their spare time, happen to have a boat big enough for him and his family. Of course, as far as
all the animals, what about the dinosaurs?
Right, and
I think dinosaurs are dope.
Yeah, he probably just had a couple of dogs with him. But you know how we recount things when we're like little kids?
It's
and
true.
Then we think about
enormous.
It later?
Yeah, right. He had some dogs and
it's
cats.
Dad
and then
had this boat, and it was so big. It was so big. And we had all the animals in the earth.
In the
whole
world. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's like when you're a child, everything's enormous. And then when you go back as an adult, you're like, this shit is tiny. I don't understand. So yeah, that's quite possible that he had and again, the whole without just as much of the Bible is written, without divine intervention, the whole concept is ludicrous. You're telling me you put rabbits on a boat with snakes and alligators and everything was peachy. Really, guys? Really? Are you kidding me? And you had, 40 days and 40 nights, right? And you had food also for all these creatures? And what'd you do with the shit?
Yeah.
Like, come on, because it was raining and storming the whole time. Like, did you go out on the deck and just throw it all out without getting knocked off?
But yeah, I mean, that is the other thing is with the food situation, he had to store all that food. Food goes bad. They didn't have deep freezers or refrigerators.
Nah, man. You're telling me you guys were eating wheatgrass the whole time?
Yeah. Well, that could explain the incest and the getting drunk on wine. But I mean, and then
all we have are these damn mushrooms. Just eat these.
If they were on a boat that long and all they had to eat was dry grains, that would have some definite mental impact on all of them. Which then now we're going to trust anything they wrote after that point as some kind of scriptural text.
Wait till they die off before you start writing more Bible shit. Yeah, for sure, dude. there's just so many things. And again, we're just talking Old Testament here, but there's just so many things that, again, without there being this dramatic divine intervention, the things don't go off. And even then, even with that, it's like, okay, so it doesn't add up because there's divine intervention, sure, or intervention is truly divine, then it is aware of the future, the present, and the past all at once. And if you're aware of all these things, why did you? I watched you or someone, I don't know, someone tagged me in something today. Like, why did you create all this just to destroy it? And while we're on the subject, I don't discredit the flood or say that it didn't happen, because it's similar to the story of Jesus in that it's a story that has been told for ages and ages. It's the same story. The Great Deluge, the flood, however you want to frame it or however you want to title it, it's been told over and over again for thousands of years. Jesus and the flood, as much as Christians, independent fundamental Baptists in general, want to think that this is the one true thing, you talk to people that have a real education, that went to real college and real school, they'll tell you this is a story that's gone over and over and over again. It's been told with different names and some very similar circumstances and situations. This story's been told a lot. The flood and a child, not necessarily by virgin birth, but a divine child that's half God, half man. Of course, I mean it's been told a lot of different ways over the ages. So I don't know. I didn't need to interject.
No, and
I got way off the time.
There's so many things like that out there, and it's the fact that it's just not. The Bible's not specifically historically accurate, and if you just look at it through a really realistic perspective, it in a way that makes sense, because so much of it doesn't make sense. No. So many things are, that, you think about the lies we tell at the spur of the moment just to get out of having a little bit of tension in a relationship or whatever.
Yeah.
And we discount that none of that could have happened when in reality, all they were doing, no, I didn't sleep with her.
Yeah, exactly.
I got her pregnant.
Yeah.
It was Jesus.
It was me. Yeah, exactly, dude.
That's an easy. I'll tell you what, like whoever got Mary pregnant, that was the easiest he's ever gotten out of anything in his whole life.
I'll tell you what, dude. That Roman centurion, he did good. Or it was Joseph.
It's like, his family. There's a family on earth still telling that story though. Like, holy shit! Yeah. Can you believe they believe that?
Can you believe that Bill got away with that 2,000 years ago? Man, that bastard! He had 17 kids that summer. Yeah, dude. Like, there's I love the humorous side of it all. I do, and even Jesus's interaction with his disciples. Some of that shit is so funny, because whether it makes sense or not, like that, he really ragged on those motherfuckers. Like a lot of times he really let them know. And again, I can't remember specific instances now. It's been a long time since I've read the Gospels, but there's so many instances where he just let those guys have it, especially Peter. Those are so much fun for me they were fun for me to read and look at and be like, man, the guy just doesn't get it. Like Jesus is telling him, like, hey, fuck off, and he won't. I love it. It's great.
I'm going to bring up one thing about this is just looking at it with reality and with what we know today. Jesus walking on water. Well, there's a really popular way for
I know Chris
the Greeks did it. The Norse people, the Norse people did it. But when they were retreating from battle, they would actually cross water. They would cross large bodies of water this way. They would lay stone just below the surface of the water, maybe a couple of inches, 6-7 inches. And so they would know where the crossing point was, and they could cross it with their chariots, and they could cross it with their soldiers on foot, and they get away.
And that's a lot of stones.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was. But then the next army, by the time they came up, they couldn't tell what happened. These people are just gone.
Very interesting.
Or they would see them, walking on the water and be like, holy shit, what the fuck did we do?
We can't do that.
Right. I'm a good soldier, but I can't walk on water. Right. And so anyway, who's to say that in Galilee where Jesus walked over, and I know that it was stormy, right? But I mean, come on, if you're drowning, like a 4-inch wave looks like a tidal wave,
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter. So who's to say there wasn't a couple on the Sea of Galilee that or Jesus wasn't pulling a practical joke. He's pulling a practical joke on the guys, and the guys are like, "Holy fuck, he can walk on the water!"
I think if and I believe from historical writings of Josephus and whatnot that Jesus was a real person that did live, but like he was just it's man, I'm gonna get in so much trouble. What if he was just Johnny Knoxville? Like he just loved playing pranks, and he got these other dudes like Bam Margera and Brandon DeCalvillo, however you say his name, like, hey, you like playing pranks? Yeah, I like that shit too. All right, cool. And then the Romans were like, all right, you fuckers, this is out of hand. We're going to kill you. And they're like, oh, shit, no. And Jesus was like, well, fine. And so he did. He went through with it. But, I mean, and again, that's really sacrilegious right there. But I think that's a funny thing to think about. Like, because he did, like, he was full of it. Really? Like, water into wine? Like, I don't know how you pull that prank off, but that's awesome. So funny. Because you got Aunt Sylvia over here that doesn't drink any kind of liquor at all, but you got her to come to the wedding, and then you tell her it's just water, and then she drinks it and it's fucking wine. She'd be pissed. That's funny. Get that on camera or on papyrus. But I think it's hilarious. Some of the things that were done. Yeah, the walking on water, that'd be great. Like, who is it? Peter, right? That was drowning. Like, save me. Now you're gonna drown. All right, fine, I'll save you. Oh, damn. That's awesome. That's hilarious. And this is something, Andrew, that I didn't know that about. I mean, obviously that makes sense with the rocks, but I didn't know that was a common thing for people to do. And Jesus spent a ton of time out there, so it's very logical that either he learned those pathways or that he made them himself. He had plenty of time, so he was a carpenter. I doubt that he had orders like that coming in. So I'm sure he had time to fuck about.
Right. Well, and that's just, again, it's just looking at it with what we know of the history through really practical place. And if you look at it logically, it breaks down a lot of the stuff that is either ignored in these inner circles or is explained away by the existence of a higher alien power that convinced these people.
Dude, and I'm telling you,
crazy crap.
First, I don't know, since I was a kid, but since I've been a late teens, early adult, I've always been intrigued with alien life. I think that's very interesting. I don't think you can explain it away. So, man, I'm about it. Like, if there was aliens and one of them came down and got a lady pregnant and he had a whole thing, like, cool, that's exciting stuff. It's a real bummer we killed him. He probably could have lived forever. Dumb Romans. So, at any rate, yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm getting lost in the weeds here. But tithe, are you going to come back to that before we end this podcast, or can we get just too far?
Sure. We ain't come back to tithe, but it just is. Well, this is what I wanted to do. Just wanted to be really practical about it. But it's the fact that this instance, as recounted by someone who wasn't even present, decades, centuries later, he recounts this. And now it's become the basis for the funding of every fundamental Christian operation on this planet, and just how detrimental that's been to so many people. It's just unbelievable. And I think one thing that blows my mind is we were talking about, was it Ken Ham, the Australian fella? And one of his big arguments is, were you there? Well, first of all, Ken, you weren't there, and neither were the people who wrote the doctrine you believe.
No, absolutely not. No.
So he's got, and what's sad to me is that atheists, when he's debating them, don't just say that to him. They should, because it would really shut him down. No, Ken, you weren't. And you can't argue that Jesus was there because you don't know where the fuck he is, or if he was a green alien. Like, you don't know.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Even, if you remember, not caveats, but one of the anomalies about Jesus growing up as a Christian, not so much Christian because that's a wide swath, but as an independent fundamental Baptist, I always thought, it rarely got to me because you weren't allowed to let things get to you. That's just the way it is, was our mentality for so many things. But what did get to me often was and of course there's no Polaroids of Jesus, but all the paintings, dude had long hair. And that is just not okay for a man to have long hair inside of the independent fundamental Baptist movement. So I was constantly explaining to friends and family, like, no, Jesus didn't have long hair. Those are all wrong. You're telling me these thousands of different images that were painted are all wrong? And then on top of that, I don't know, history has been whitewashed really, really bad. I've got a friend at work. I'm not going to name any names, but he's just very, very wise when it comes to these things. He has a legit degree. grew up in Detroit and graduated and got into a really good school. And he's helped me understand how whitewashed history has been. Look, you go back to that time period and you go back to what Jesus was a Jew. You go back to what Jews looked like. He does not look like those pictures, those paintings. I'm not saying that he didn't have long hair.
He comes from the Middle East, and he spent 90% of his life in the sun. He's got a deeper.
He looks Scandinavian in the images.
Right. He's not a white person. No, he's not.
No.
And those actually, a lot of that came about, when Catholicism was at its heaviest. Yes. I mean, we think of the periods of times in the Dark Ages when they pulled all the libraries together and they burned what they didn't like, and then they kept what they wanted, and then scribes were the only people who really had access to that sort of thing.
Right.
But actually past that, when the Catholicism really hit its boom and the Vatican began to really rake it in, was about the time that Black people and Jewish people were incredibly unpopular. And that's the time where those images come from. They're very middle of the road. They're white. They're not offensive. He's not, you don't see a picture of Jesus with a dark tan. You don't see a picture of Jesus with black hair.
No.
Curly hair either, filter on it. Which it would have been.
Yeah, it would have. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, there's something to be said for all of that. I think it's interesting, the course that history has taken. And I hope that it continues, and I don't know if it's on the right path, but I know more people are speaking about it. I hope that it continues on the right path where, the real and true history of man, not of religion or spirituality or any of that, because that's always going to get misconstrued going to happen. There's too much ideology.
Right.
There's too much, I can't think of the right word, but there's just too much passion inflamed behind it that causes that type of history to just get all kinds of skewed. So, I hope that history continues to be rewritten properly, which is hard to do because, again, as King Ham says, none of us were there, but there are irrefutable facts that need to be brought to light.
Yeah, and on that note, before we end this, that is one of the primary things about the Bible and why it's believed and the dogma so strong. There is a fact that in many cases, what is considered scripture, what's in the Bible, were the only texts to survive those periods.
Yes. And
that's a ludicrous thing to base a religion on, simply something that more or less survived a 400 or 500 year period, and I know we talked about this the other day, but if that were green eggs and ham, is that what you'd be teaching your children?
Not that green eggs and ham is bad. I just read it to Chloe last night. There's some good shit in there.
No, but I know
what you're saying.
Yeah.
It would be ludicrous. Like, Sunday morning, well, would you eat it? Could you eat it in the dark? Like, what are we talking about here? Because that's very
Could you eat it in the dark? That's a little bit that's off color. How dare you say that to my wife?
I got you. Yeah, no one would say that in any church we went to.
Right.
But anyways, I don't know how much time we have left.
We'll go 15 more minutes or whatever.
Okay, if we can, I'll see what I have going on. But the issue of tithing, or just going to church in general. Look, a lot of good friends that are in the pastorate and family as well. And I'm not here to diminish and say that these people, if they're working and trying to make a better life for others and teaching good principles and precepts, I understand, the whole concept. But to say that it's an absolute thing, 10% and or more, and there were a lot of people when I was growing up in the church that I worked in that gave way more than 10%. To make it so absolute and base it on again, I understand it's Hebrew, so that's New Testament, but to base it on a scripture which is based on something from thousands of years ago, even though we're in the New Testament now, I just don't see how you can tell me that if I make $200 this week, I have to give you $20. And if I don't give you $20, God's going to judge me. I can't get with that. I just can't, man. I don't comprehend it. I don't think you can take one little. Go ahead.
When you take that to the level, not just to demand that money, but to demand that money over feeding your children with and they will tell you this is, you hear televangelists say this, but it happens in Baptist churches every day, where God will give you the money you need to feed your family. He will provide your needs if you give us your money. Oh, fuck off. I just would love to take that and shove it so far up one of those idiots' asses. I'll tell you where I'll get what I need. I get what I need at work, and you can get the fuck out of my life and shut up. Like,
like it's again, the word I keep coming to, and you might need to title the podcast this because I'm going to say it too much, and the rapper will get a lot of press from this, of course. But ludicrous is just what comes to mind. It's just crazy. Like, you can't, again, and there's all kinds of scripture that I like to base it on. And if people watch this that are friends that are still let me know, oh, you got all these names wrong, which I did. But whoever it is, Elisha or Elijah, maybe you can clear it up. And the woman that had she had oil or flour or something in a pot, and he said, feed me. What an asshole.
That was Elisha, yeah.
What an asshole. You have a son and you're a single mother and you can't make ends meet, but this guy comes out of the blue and is living in your house, and instead of him saying, you know what, I'm going to go get a job, I'm going to support you, I'm going to help, I'm going to go fucking shoot a deer, well, I'm not shoot, well, with an arrow, I'm going to kill a rabbit, I'm going to snare a rabbit, like, I'm going to do something to help you because you are putting a roof over my head. Instead of that, he looks around and says, oh, we have some oil and flour, go ahead and make me a cake. Dude, this is all we have. Literally, the Bible
that reminds me of half the pastors I've ever met. That's exactly
absolutely. Me and my son were going to eat this, and we were going to die, and it's our last meal. And you're telling me I should feed you instead? No, fuck you. I'm going to feed us. Why don't you be a man and put on your work boots and go out and get me something to eat, or go get a fucking job? That's what I have to say to that guy. And again, the story goes like, just so that if anyone's watching who doesn't know the story or want to tell the bad part, she feeds him, and then miraculously there's more oil or more flour, and so she keeps pouring it out of this pot that's the bottom. It's Mary Poppins. Come on.
Yeah, but wait a minute. I want to say, like, whose point of view are we seeing this from? Because I doubt whoever wrote that talked to the lady. Sure, there was more oil. She had to go get some more. Sure, there's more flour. She had to go fucking find some more because the jackass sitting in her living room, shitting in his pants, ate it all.
Feed me, woman.
Of course. Exactly, and Elijah goes, oh my God, look, it's a miracle. There's more flour. She's like, yeah, there's more. I went and bought it at the store, you idiot.
At the store, asshole.
I had to work
while
6
you
hours
lay there in the
for
bed.
The flour.
Exactly, dude. Exactly. Yeah, it's again, there's so many stories, especially Old Testament, that are just mind-blowing that I want us to get into more. And I want to do more research on them, and or at least read more scripture as we talk about them. But there's just so many things. And I love that you said that. I don't know why I picked up this bottle now. I love that you said that about describing so many men, mostly evangelists, that we've encountered inside of the cult that we lived in. Like, these guys are just
lazy ass motherfuckers.
Yeah, there's that. But being a man of God, so to speak, just gives you the kind of, not the kind of power money can't buy, but the kind of power gangster money can buy, and thugs can have because of their threat of violence or their threat of outing you, things like that. It's unreal, the kind of things that these guys got away with. And we look at them now. Some of them have been caught and are doing time in federal penitentiary. Some of them got away because, and I know we're way in the weeds now, but some of them have got away with things because of the statute of limitations. It's just mind-boggling when you just framed it that way. If that describes this fat ass sitting on my couch, eating my food, taking advantage of my status in life, my hospitality, because he's the man of God. And I'll never forget, one day I was in chapel at the IFB college that I attended, and I always had a big mouth. I definitely got in a lot of trouble in college for that, because you're not allowed to have your own opinion. And that doesn't just go for cults. That's a lot of places, but most definitely where I went to college. I recall I was just talking shit, You know, and I have that problem. Like even now in meetings and shit, I'll lean over and listen to some motherfucker. Like it's tough for me to not talk shit. And I was sitting next to a friend of mine by the name of Steve, who I'm glad to say we've had great conversations recently. He's definitely out of the cult, but I was sitting next to Steve and I just said something, you know, the man behind the pulpit said something dumb. And so I said something dumb, just muttered something dumb in return. And I'll never forget, Steve looked at me and said, "That's the man of God. You can't talk that way to or about the man of God." And I did, and in the moment I felt shame and I felt guilt because I had been so indoctrinated my whole life. But even months later and now many years later, looking back, I look back at it and I say, man of God or not, you said something stupid, and so I'm going to have something stupid to say as well. I don't care if you've been on the mission trail for so many years. I don't care if you're a missionary to Africa. I don't care who you are. If you say dumb shit,
right,
don't expect to not have to reconcile that.
That comes from they lift these people up to a supernatural place in your life. Okay. And then there's this is where a lot of this fear spawns from. Hang on, we'll address directly this in a back to scratch episode.
Yes.
But they use that fear that you say, you know, this fear of punishment. And actually it went through my head the other day. I tripped and I spilled some beer and it ran down the wall and it was in the carpet and it took me like 50 minutes to clean the whole thing up. And I'm like, oh, and yeah, it goes through my head. God did this to me for drinking beer, right? It happens to you because that's how you were raised. And you know what? Yep. If there is a God, he doesn't give a shit because he's got bigger things going on, hopefully.
Yeah, really.
You know, but
I would hope so.
But all of this comes from the pastors wield that power. They make you feel like if you were to just say something and maybe even they didn't know about it, God could use them to judge you.
Absolutely. And I think what I wanted to get back to, or what I try to interrupt you with, was what is ludicrous to me. Again, you've got a title, put that in the episode title somehow. But what is unreal to me and ludicrous about all this is that I don't know, and I don't know if other cults are the same way. Like, look, we're not a cult. I actually just recently watched Holy Hell, and it was very telling. If you haven't seen it on Netflix, anyone that hasn't seen it that's come out of the cult that we have, you've got to watch it. But what I think is very telling is the fact that we were taught, I don't know if we were taught that Catholicism was a cult necessarily, but we were taught that it was the wrong way. However, our pastors had a direct line to God, and we were never taught like we couldn't talk to God about anything, but we were taught that they had a special understanding, and so they were able to stand up and give us the scriptures in a different way than we would read it ourselves. And we had to sit there when they said something that they thought was this great revelation from Proverbs. I never looked at it that way. Of course I never looked at it that way because I never read the damn thing. You can't say, oh, Catholics are doing it wrong, when your religion is doing really the same thing of putting a man on a pedestal and saying he has this direct line or he has a special understanding of Jivas and the Holy Scriptures. And so because of that, he gets to say these things and you have to be in awe or you have to do what he says, whereas you can't just read the Bible and get it for yourself normally, like you'd read any other book.
Right. Yeah, and you're not supposed to question them and think that maybe they don't have all the answers.
Oh, God, no.
You're supposed to follow them blindly, and this leads to subcultures being formed that are racist and vile and homophobic in a lot of ways. Yeah. And this guy more or less spawns many versions of himself. So if he's a good guy, that can be benign, but 9 times out of 10, it's incredibly damaging to society at large.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. It's sad to me because it's funny in a way because the cult that we come from, I would tell people about it. Hammond, Indiana, First Baptist Church. And that's a huge deal growing up. And people, even in Andrew, even in the Chicagoland area, people would tell me, we've never heard of it. Oh, what? We're the biggest mega church, Jesus, Scott Hyles ever, amazing.
Dude.
And I would just be like, how have you not heard of this?
The first time I was wearing, oh my God, I was 10 years old when we moved to Arnold. And I used to wear, you remember that one year Jack Hyles had his face on a big pen, those pens you could wear, you know, and he has his face on it.
Course,
He's wearing that. Yeah, I was wearing that with pride.
Oh, it was some America shit, right?
It was Yeah, we want America back.
Yeah, and he had a American flag tie.
Him and Donald Trump would have been best buddies.
Dude, they probably were.
So well.
They were alive at the same time.
Yeah, they're probably sucking each other's dicks.
Absolutely.
But he's got this. I'm wearing this pen with his face on it. Mrs. Ponder, you don't know who she is. You do. A lot of people don't. She comes up to me, and she's a sweetheart. And she's a Christian, if anybody ever was, if that's a good word to say. She was a good woman, and she came up to me and asked me who that was and why I was wearing out my pen. And this is in church, and I'm 10, and I almost had a heart attack. And I mean, I literally almost had a heart attack. Like I was having palpitations. I could not breathe. How could you not know who our grand leader, master, whom we salute with our lives to this great cause?
Yep.
Absolutely. And you call yourself a Christian, you scum.
you get out of my sight.
You shouldn't even sit through this service. You don't deserve to be.
You're probably not even saved. That was a Jim Beller line. That was a good one. I actually put both the Jacks, Hyles and Scop, in my locker. I remember do you remember the youth conference flyers they would send out? Those big ass flyers, trifold. Yeah, dude, I put both. As a teenage boy who should have had Pam Anderson or Kevin Garnett or Michael Jordan in his locker. No. I had Jack Hyles and Jack Scop. No wonder I never got laid in junior high.
Jeez, yeah.
Anyways, there's other reasons for that, but I'm sure that's one of them. I went to a Christian school. That couldn't have helped.
Well, you said trifold, but if you look at – this is one thing that blows my mind. Look at anything Scientology and David Miscavige does.
Yeah.
Jack Scott copies it 1-to-1 every time.
Shit.
Their auditorium, almost identical. Yeah, every conference they have. Jack Scott, his budgets. I sat down and talked to when I was there with Pastor Williams, and we talked about some of about the budgeting crap. And he told me what they went in. I mean, he gave me rough estimates on what they went into debt, but their budgets and what they did was very, very similar to the way Scientology did their conferences. And the conference you went 10,000 teens, about a third of those were shipped in by First Baptist Church and had nothing to do with that, because they had to have those numbers because that was important to them, and they paid for all of that. They paid people to go to youth conference.
Numbers, that's crazy. I know, and I'm not going to say the name again. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't know if you should bleep it, but the current pastor told you this thing. Wow, that's crazy. I do remember. I mean, I was there. We had a year when I was in college where we wanted to hit 25 baptisms, and I remember we would have what we call H Day, and we go and pick up people from a very ghetto area of Chicago where we wouldn't normally go. We'd bring them, we would bribe them. I love that. Oh, you're bribing my kid to come to church because you're giving them kids. No, it's not a bribe. Yes, it's a fucking bribe. That's literally how a bribe works. Like that is the best definition of a bribe. If you do this thing for me, I will give you this thing. That is.
I want to interrupt you real quick.
Go ahead.
Did your bus route ever give out chickens?
We never gave out baby chicks. Maybe we had a baby chick someday.
No. Full chickens. When I was there, they were giving chickens. They were giving chickens to these families so they could raise them and slaughter them in the city because they were that poor.
Chicago?
They were, they're giving them. I mean, it was food. They did it as it was a live chicken because then they couldn't blame. They were just giving people food to come to church who were too poor to buy it. It had to look a certain way through the Christian perspective. But
they gave away. Trust me, they gave up on the whole looking a certain way.
But that's all that
PlayStations,
it was.
Watermelons. It's a bribe. So, but what I was getting at was we would pick up kids in these ghetto areas, and their parents really didn't care if they were gone all day. We'd bring them. Usually, it was a Saturday service, separate service we would have. We'd bring them to the First Baptist of Hammond grounds, and there's stories of guys that would give kids money. If I give you $1, if you'll let me dunk you again, and they would, and some of them didn't give them money. They just kept dunking them just so they could count.
Double dipping.
Yep. And they would come, and it was always in a basement. So, like, when I look at it now, like, so many things wrong with these situations, and we just, that's the way it is. Jack Scott wants us to, man. And there's people.
I want to come back to that.
Go ahead.
And there's so many wrong things. The morning after, current pastor received notification of the complaints, multiple, against said individual, we both know who I'm talking about, for molestation. Said individual was teaching a Sunday school class with 200 kids in it following Sunday morning. That was when I really started to decay, and I looked back. I looked at it, and I looked at current pastor, and I was like, why didn't they at least pull him out of there?
Come on, guys.
And I asked said individual the same question. Well, we can't, these children need to be nurtured in Christ, and we can't spare, the staff. We don't have, and I'm just like, you're fucking nuts. Like, if there's a complaint against you for molestation and you're surrounded by 200 kids the following Sunday, you're out of your head.
Any other place, anywhere, outside of a cult, right? A school, a civic center, a YMCA, that dude is out of there that fast. Like, it's done. Like, it doesn't even have to be true. It's just an allegation, and you're gone. You know what it takes to get on a sex offender list? It takes public indeed. It takes the kind of shit that the guys in the Jackass movies do. That's all you have to do. Just piss in public, and you're a sex offender. But inside this cult, you can literally rape children and continue on your merry fucking way. Fuck that. Anyways, we got way off the subject of tithe.
Right. No, you're totally right. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up for today. Thanks for being on the show. I'll get you on hopefully next week or sometime this week. We'll get you on back to scratch. But thanks for joining us today. We'll see you all guys again very soon. Stay tuned to the Andy Hardy Show. We'll see you later. Party.